You know how every once in a while you're like pivoting stuff? You're like, oh, I really need to do this or I really need to do that. How much of that is actually coming from you saying, oh, I really need to do that? Or is it from you seeing what somebody else is doing and then saying, oh, I also need to do that?
Hey everyone, welcome to the S.O.B Marketing Podcast, where we celebrate the S.O.B that you are, and if you haven't figured it out yet, we mean small-owned business. We don't mean S.O.B.
Listen, we know that as a small business owner, you are working hard on the daily to keep your business fully operational while trying to promote it. And while some days it may feel like the business is owning you, if we're being honest with each other, I bet you would admit that you wouldn't give up the insanity for anything.
Our commitment here at the S.O.B Marketing Podcast is to give you the real talk, what works when it comes to advertising, marketing, promoting your business, and then what doesn't really work.
And Chelsea and I promise to always keep the conversation real. All right, business friends, welcome back for another episode of the S.O.B Marketing Podcast. S.O.B as in small-owned business. We're not calling you guys any names around here. But before we jump into our episode today, we want to just remind you, if you are not subscribed to this podcast, do that right now so you could get all the notifications whenever we upload a new episode. Also, if you like an episode and you have a business friend that you know can benefit from the topic we're discussing, please feel free to share it with them. The more you know. We feel that spreading information is definitely the best way to help support people. And lastly, if you want to support us, the best way to do that is to leave us a review. So just leave us a little love note in there. Tell us what you like about the episode, and we so appreciate it. Chelsea, what are we talking about today?
Okay, so today we are talking about something that I feel like we really need to discuss, and that is the consumption of content specifically for small business owners. As a human on this earth, we are always consuming content, right? But as small business owners, we consume the content, but we're struggling to create the content, right? So this topic today, we are talking about how to stop just consuming content and actually create.
And I do want to say that I feel like small business owners now in 2024, we're in a very weird spot.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about this. Back in 1999, small business owners were not worried about my Instagram reel took off. Oh my gosh, did I convert those views into sales?
Yeah.
Like what? We were not worried about those types of things. And so I do think that we're in a very weird place where we can get too focused on just consuming and constantly learning. I'm saying this because I am that person.
Yeah.
Y'all. Okay. Ask Chelsea. I listen to podcasts. I watch YouTube videos. I am constantly just listening and taking things in. And so really what we want to talk about today is how to kind of form a healthy boundary around, and that's what it is. It's a boundary with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Pull yourself out of it and say like, hey, I just need to do instead of consuming right now. And let me just make one other point, y'all. You know, these social media platforms are built to what? Make you binge. Okay. They're like the Netflix of, whatever. They want you to constantly just be scrolling through stuff. So you have to make it a point to figure out a way to build those boundaries.
Yeah. And I want to touch on the fact that content marketing is so important for your business now. And this is also part of the problem because people do not want to be sold to. Content marketing pitches your small business differently to people. And that's why it's so effective. And that's why we make such a big deal about creating content, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Like you can't be constantly creating and you can't be constantly consuming. It's not healthy for you.
And if you guys have forgotten, you have a small business to run.
Yeah.
On top of all this. So that's where, I think sometimes, and I'll tell you, I'm going to confess, I'm a diddly daddler. I love diddly daddling all day long. And that's where I'm going to give you a perfect example of this.
It's diddly daddler? I thought it was dilly dally.
Diddly
I'm
dabbler.
dilly-dallying.
I'm a diddly dabbler. I don't know.
Diddly?
Maybe I don't know. Did I just make that up?
I don't know. Well, go ahead. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So, perfect example of this. If you're wondering what the symptoms are this. I like doing multiple things at one time, right? But it stretches like you into like instead of just focusing on one thing, you would have been done with it like 10 minutes ago. So hyper focus. And then also, if I'm working, let's say on a YouTube video and I have a deadline to upload it like on, Monday, then I got to be done with it on Sunday. I will tinker with it until the very last minute. Same thing, you can move that deadline. You could give me a couple extra days. Let's say Chelsea said, Vivian, you know what? Don't worry about posting it on Monday. Instead, let's post it on Thursday. I would leave it till Wednesday night. I would be messing with it. Like, that's just how I am. So the one thing that brings to mind is there's a saying, and there's actually a study behind this where it's like the amount of time you give yourself to do something, you're going to take the full allotted time.
Yeah. I want to talk about the fact if you are doing research online for how to stop consuming content and how to stop with your social media addiction, the number one suggestion is always going to be delete your social media apps. And you, as a small business owner, you can't do that. You can't just delete your social media apps because that's a channel to grow your business, right? So I want to talk about specifically ideas to help small business owners to help them stop consuming and then start actually creating. And one of the things that I want to say, an added layer to the whole problem with small business consumption and consuming so much content, is that it is so easy to fall down the comparison rabbit hole. And this is just not a productive use of time for you as a small business owner.
Agree. And how many more times, like, I'm just going to throw this out there, small business owners, think about this seriously. You know, every once in a while you're like pivoting stuff. You're like, oh, I really need to do this or I really need to do that. How much of that is actually coming from you saying, oh, I really need to do that? Or is it from you seeing what somebody else is doing and then saying, oh, I also need to do that? And so that's where the overwhelm comes in. So to Chelsea's point, this is going to help with all of that. It's going to help with the comparison game that you guys are playing and also with you adding things to your to-do list that really you have no business adding. And you're only doing it because of, what you're seeing out there.
Exactly. Okay, so let's get into actual actionable items. My first one is going to be write it all down, just like brain dump, because sometimes we have issues with actually coming up with content ideas, right? If you just brain dump and then go back and look at everything you've written, I guarantee you'll be able to find nuggets of gold, of content gold, right?
Artists are probably really good at this because I think what happens if you're a writer, okay, or let's say you're a painter or whatever, there's got to be a point where when you have, when something comes into your brain, I always tell myself I can't tie anything to it. Like I can't make it a good idea or a bad idea. I just got to get it down. And sometimes it's just a couple words. Yeah. All right. And Chelsea, I know you sometimes feel me on this because what I do is I will call Chelsea and I will tell her, no judgment on what I'm about to say. Like, I don't really know how to frame it or how to put it in there, but just hear me, listen to the words, and then we can start somewhere, right? We'll have to pick a place to start with it. But I think that helps in, like you said, this brain dump. Allow yourself the opportunity to not make it organized, not make it whatever. Just get it from in your head onto a piece of paper, or into a Word document or a Google Doc, wherever, and then just let it be. And then you can work with that.
Okay, we're talking about writing your ideas down. No matter what time it is, you have an idea, write it down.
Or do a voice note.
A voice note. That's a great idea too. Like, go ahead, just find a way to get it out of your head and put it somewhere where you can go back to it. I really want to say actually combine all your ideas together, like actually put it in one specific place. Like when you're getting it out of your head, it doesn't matter where you put it, but then take it from wherever you put it and put it in like a specific place. I'm saying this as someone who has a thought, writes it down, forgets where I wrote it down, and then doesn't find it again until like months later. And I'm like, oh, dang, I had that idea. That would have been really good content if I had remembered where I put it or if I had put it in my designated spot for ideas.
There's a reason we're sisters.
Yes.
I do this with Post-its. I do it with notes. And it's the hard thing, but I think what it is like, think of it this way, y'all. Like, you have to get in the habit of doing something. So if there's one document maybe that you keep on your Google Drive, so like Chelsea said, you write it down somewhere and then you just make it a point to bring it back and put it in this one document. And that way you have a scrolling document that's just full of ideas. I do this for the YouTube videos, and I've done this every year in some different way, shape, or form, but I'll actually put it in a spreadsheet. And then I'll sit there and just put ideas down. And there was at one time that I hadn't looked at it, I want to say in 3 months. And I was really like, oh, I don't know what kind of video I'm going to make. I went back to it and I was like, oh, I had some really good ideas in here. Like you forget.
Yeah.
You're like, man, I had a stroke of genius. Like
I warn you guys as someone who's done this. I have multiple idea documents in our Google Drive because I forget that I've created one and then I create a new one. It'd be like that sometimes. Like if that's something, maybe go through your Google Drive after maybe every quarter and say, oh, hey, I actually have 2 idea folders. Let me go ahead and combine them.
That's great.
Yeah. My second little actionable item is going to be actually give yourself a specific amount of time to look for inspiration, right? Because we all do this. We say, we're just scrolling through Instagram, we're just scrolling through Facebook because we want to come up with ideas and we need a stroke of inspiration. Okay, and then it's like 5 hours later and you haven't written anything down. You haven't come up with any ideas. You've just fallen down a hole. So I like to actually give myself a specific amount of time, like 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, for 30 minutes, I'm going to actively actually look for inspiration. These 30 minutes do not mean I'm scrolling through social media. It means I am looking for content ideas. If you tell yourself this is what you need to be doing, you're more likely to actually commit to it. Set a timer.
Yeah, timers work really great, especially if you do. And I would say look at the interval. So don't give yourself like an hour to look for inspiration. Like you're going to go down a hole. Okay.
Yep.
I would rather like maybe spend 10 minutes doing it. And then you could do 10 minutes in the morning and then 10 minutes in the afternoon if you're not feeling good about the 10 minutes that you didn't find anything you liked earlier on. But just that's a great approach to it because I do think the longer I personally have found myself, and this has happened more so now than it used to, I think because I used to be maybe way more hyper focused. So that's partially because you're on board now. Okay. So you're to blame for that. Okay. So I need to button up, but part of it is now I'll actually scroll and then I'll just find like random stuff that shows up on my feed or whatever, or like on Pinterest. And then I'll click and then I end up clicking on something else. And then I have to look something. She's correct. This will set a timer, say I have a very specific purpose for what I'm looking for right now. Just focus on it.
Absolutely. And then also these two go together. Are your productive apps actually helping you? Okay, so if you are adding everything to your Notes app, but when you're opening your Notes app, you're like, oh, I have my phone on me. Let me just open Instagram real quick too. Just don't have your phone with you while you're working on content. Well, if you're like creating content like video or photos, then obviously you need your phone. But if you can avoid having your phone in the room while you're working, don't have it in there. Maybe not the entire time. Maybe just say for an hour, I want my phone to be in a different room. And going back to, are my productive apps actually helping me? If you find that writing things in your notes app causes you to open all your other apps and scroll endlessly through stuff, switch to pencil and paper. Don't use an app. Just write it all down. That's what I do.
I mean, you can easily just get like a spiraled notebook or, something, a journal that you can write in and just keep it. And then that way, like you said, it's consolidated and you still have it, but you're not tempted to open up your, whether that's your notes app or anything else, and then just kind of, do dilly-dallying on the phone.
Dilly-dally. Yeah. Also,
piddle paddling. That's what it is. Piddle paddling.
Piddle paddling. Okay. Yes, it's dilly dally and piddle paddling. It's not diddly daddling or whatever you said.
Is that what I was saying?
Diddly
daddling.
That's what you said. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I made it up. Do you love making crafts and working on your small business but struggle to get them in front of customers?
Do craft fairs, events, or pop-ups leave you feeling overwhelmed or frustrated?
Introducing Rock Your Fair, the course designed to help you succeed in the world of craft fairs, pop-ups, and events, created by 2 marketing professionals with over 15 years of experience. Rock Your Fair is perfect for anyone who's new to the game or just wants to step up their game.
Our step-by-step approach will guide you through everything you need to know, from choosing the right events, to setting up your booth, to marketing your products effectively.
And you know what? You'll also get access to us for personalized coaching and feedback so you can put your best foot forward.
Do not let craft fairs, pop-ups, and events hold you back. Sign up for Rock Your Fair today and start rocking your way to success.
For a limited time, get access to our free mini course. Simply head over to our website at www.theseasonedmarketer.com and click on workshops.
For me specifically, I do create most, if not all, of our content. My biggest thing is creating lists. For one, it's a mood boost, like when you mark something off your to-do list, it gives you like a serotonin boost, right? And that's really what social media does too, is it's adrenaline. It's, oh, this is fun, this is interesting, blah, blah, blah. You can mimic that by checking something off your list.
So what you're saying is put your ideas down, give yourself kind of like a to-do list or find some way to organize them, and then that way that will help.
Yes.
To work through them.
Yes, absolutely. And another thing, I'm like giving all of my secret tips, all the things that I secretly do. So if you want to work like Chelsea works, here's what you do. For vague, bigger projects, I try to switch up what I'm doing every hour. So if I'm working on our content, I will work on our content for an hour. Then after that hour, I will switch to working on our clients' content, because that way it keeps me from getting bored. It keeps me from getting frustrated. Like, I can't think of anything. I can't think of any ideas for this season marketer. Well, you know what? Let me take a step back and let me look at what I can come up with for our clients. If you are someone like me who needs to be engaged and you feel like something's taking too long, actually switch it up for yourself. So maybe only work on something for an hour. Maybe split it into 30-minute intervals.
We're both just making words up
we
here.
We really are. Yeah. But that's something that you don't have to finish something at that moment. You can come back to it. And I know earlier you said, oh, well, I switch between things and I never actually sit down and get something done, even though I could finish it in 10 minutes. I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about like bigger, like I have to create content for this week. Take a step back. If it's, I need to write an email, don't write half the email and then walk away. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think what also works best to accompany that is, like Chelsea said, she'll give herself a time block, but they have actually shown that if you're able to kind of group similar things together into that time block, then it helps. So the way I think of this is like, if it's a process.
Yeah.
All right. So perfect example. This is why some YouTubers will literally, because y'all, when you go to turn on the camera and you're going to do a long form video, as a girl, I need to have an appropriate outfit on. I need to have my makeup and my hair done. I want to have earrings on. I want to look presentable. Okay. Do I always look presentable to where I could just pick up and start filming? No. And so the thing is, since I've already taken the time to get dolled up and do all that, that's why you see some people batch their videos.
Yeah.
If they have 2 ideas already lined up, then they're like, I'm already here. I've got everything set up. My lighting's good. It all looks great. Let me just knock these 2 videos out while I can.
Yeah.
That batching process of like video recording and video recording, you're doing 2 of the same activity at once, helps because you're already in that frame of mind and you're already doing that. So same thing with like, if I were to take that example, great, now I have to edit the video. Okay, well, when I'm doing the editing, then what are the components to that video editing? I need a thumbnail. Well, maybe I should just do both the thumbnails at one time, get them out of the way, and then I can do X, Y, and Z. And so that's where they say you can really create efficiencies and help yourself by doing what Chelsea does, giving herself, the time. I'm going to give myself an hour to work on my client's social media post. And then she's just focused on that. And on top of it, if she wanted to take it one step further, let's say we have a client that wants both an email and social media. She's like, no, in this hour, I'm just going to do the social media because it's the same type of like, thought process.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought batching up because online, there are a lot of people who say batching isn't good because it's not authentic and you're not being creative in the moment and blah, blah. I don't believe in that. I'm just going to say that outright. Like my opinion is if you can batch, it will help you. As small business owners, you don't have all the time in the world. If you're already set up, you already look good, you already have the time right now to do it, create as much video content as you can all at once.
So let's use this podcast as an example. Here's the thing is whenever we hit record, y'all, we have to get lighting set up because I live in a cabin and it's very dungeon-esque, right? If we were to leave the lighting alone. So we have to get lighting. We have to connect the mics. We have to get the video camera going. And there's like a whole process
to drive out here.
Yes. We have to get like our notes. And so the thing is, if we're already doing that one task. If we're able to record 2 or 3 episodes, why wouldn't we, as opposed to, waiting till next week? So that's where batching comes in. Now, here's the thing Chelsea just told you. There are 2 school of thoughts. Actually, there are 3, and I'm the third. Okay. There's a school of thought that batching is good. There's a school of thought that batching is bad because it's not authentic. And then there's the school of thought where I'm like, I don't have anything against batching. It's just realistically, am I doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Some weeks I can do that. And then other weeks I'm just not in the right frame of mind to do it. But I think that's where if you get good at it and you have consistency and a schedule and you train yourself to do what you do, Chelsea, which is like this hour, I'm going to work on this. Next hour, I'm going to work. Then I think it can be really, really effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I do also want to say, I'm so glad that we're talking about this with the both of us because I am here specifically to create our content. You take on all the other stuff, right? Like you are the small business owner. You are the one who started the season marketer. You are the closest to being a small business owner out of the 2 of us, right? Like my job is content. And so coming from someone who is a content creator, this is my thought process and this is how I do it. That's why I love batching so much. I'm so glad that you brought up, realistically for yourself, you can't always batch things.
I really thank you for bringing that to the forefront though, because I think that's where small business owners sometimes, you guys, when we tell you guys not to play the comparison game, it's not for any other reason than for that. The details are important. Okay. Like Chelsea said, Chelsea is always about content creation, creating efficiency so that she doesn't have to do something next week that she can knock out this week, right? Whereas the small business owner perspective, where you have a little more that you're doing and you're thinking, okay, it's a priority game. For me personally, every single day when I wake up, there's a list in my head and I'm like, what do I absolutely have to get done today? Sometimes it's that weekly email that we send out to our subscribers. Sometimes it's not. So that means that I know I have to get it done that week, but it can fluctuate on like when I can actually do it. Now, do I want to go back to having a certain, like I used to be very rigid with my deadlines. I do want to go back to that. I'm working my way back there. Okay. So I think that's where I'm glad you said that, Chelsea, because if you're having any kind of maybe rub with you and an employee on like, I know Chelsea because we're sisters and we also have a very different dynamic. She knows I'll get my feelings hurt when she says like, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. She's telling me like I need to do something. If that's not you though, and you're like, oh, I don't like having someone telling me like that I need to, I'll get it done when I need to. Their perspective is different. Their priorities are different. They're saying that because you not doing it puts her behind schedule on something. And so that's where I think the understanding has to come in, where it's like you have to find the systems that work best for you. And even though Chelsea and I are sisters, we both operate our bodies, our minds, we operate very differently. I can be scatterbrained all day long. That girl over there does not like it. She don't. You don't like them.
Y'all, I probably sound crazy this episode. I'm going to say something else that sounds crazy. I number my to-do lists in order of when things need to get done. Because when I write out my to-do list, I'm just thinking about, okay, this is what I need to do this week. So after I write everything down, I go back and I say, I'm going to do this first, this second, this third, blah, blah, blah. I number all of them. And then what I do is I work on the first thing for an hour. If I haven't finished it next, if I haven't finished it yet, I'll go to the second thing. And I work on all my things for an hour until I finish.
Yeah. And see, I definitely do not do that.
Yeah. That probably sounds psychotic. That probably sounds so weird.
I think a lot of people do that actually, and it helps. I think that's the thing, is knowing yourself. And when we're giving you guys these tips, you may not 100% implement or work the same way, but even if you take one little like portion of it and it helps you with something, then, mission accomplished.
This is a given, no matter what we are talking about, no matter the episode. You need to set boundaries for yourself. You need to know what works best for you and how you're going to be the most productive you can be. The lines are very blurred for small business owners when it comes to personal and professional lives. You still need to make a conscious effort, not only to set boundaries for yourself in your professional life, you also need to set boundaries on separating your two lives. You need a personal life, y'all. It cannot just be about your small business. It's not healthy.
No, you're right. And I think really the two kind of feed off each other. So I will tell you, when I have downtime, I am much better at being creative.
Yeah.
And I think almost every person that has some type of like creative spark to them will tell you that. Like you have to have the play and the fun part of it in order to be very good at the other part. And part of this discussion, I feel like, is very, for me, whenever we talk about like, hey, stop consuming so much stuff. You guys are like beating yourself up over what? Over what? What's the expectation, right? Like just whatever your business is, it's actually, you're probably complicating it way more than you need to. And I know I have done this, and that's where now I'm like, okay, what do we need to cut out? Let's simplify. Let's do that. And so if you're at the point where you need to refocus, that's A-okay. This is the perfect place to start to refocus, where you say, hey, you know what? I'm in this overwhelmed stage where I've spent a lot of time just watching and seeing what's out there. The one thing that always strikes me, Chelsea, where I think, there are a gajillion Instagram accounts out there telling you about the Instagram algorithm.
Yeah.
I don't know why it gets on my nerves. Like, I'm just like, do people watch this all the time? Like, I would go mental if all I thought about was how to play the Instagram game.
Yeah. Which, okay, another thing to consider, having your own personal social media account apart from your business account, that is so important, because we're not telling you to cut out social media. Like, social media is fun, right? I love Instagram. I love scrolling through Instagram. I love watching my little band videos.
And cat
But
videos.
yeah. But that when I am on my personal account, it is very much about my memes and my bands. It is not about the season marketer. When I am on the season marketer's account, it is very much about the season marketer. And the type of content that is on even the explore page is different on the season marketer than it is on my own personal account. And I think that is very important to have. You have to separate the two distinctly.
Well, and there is some like some people would tell you, oh, you don't have to separate them out. And I think it's all based on what you want to do. Okay.
Yeah.
That certainly may be the case. The only thing with that I will say is then create like a little dummy account where you can just like scroll stupid stuff that you want to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Because like she's saying is, I understand what you're saying, Chelsea, and you're saying there's social for fun and then there's social for business.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes they overlap and that's great. But what she's saying is by having kind of that separate account, when you get on there, it's you're not going into like these hour-long like scrolling through and doing all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, okay, touching on that, I am not scrolling for an hour on our business account because it's not content that I can scroll an hour through, right? Because I have two separate accounts. All of the really interesting, I could scroll for an hour stuff to me is on my personal account, because Instagram, it's all about the algorithm, y'all. Like, they're going to show you things that based on your profile, they think they can hook you and get you to scroll for hours. But if your professional page is separate, again, you don't have to do this, but I think this works best to separate the two, your personal and professional lives. The content that is on the season marketer, I would not scroll for hours through.
I agree with your point. I feel like for a lot of people, having the separate pages are going to be very effective, right?
Yes.
It's going to help them compartmentalize, like, this is my personal, this is my business. One of the ways that you can probably reduce the amount of time that you're spending scrolling instead of actually doing is to go in and look at the accounts you're following.
Okay, so let's go through a lightning round of all the things we said, all the actionable items that you can do to stop consuming and actually create the content. You want to brain dump, get all your thoughts out. You want to give yourself a specific amount of time to look for inspiration. I'm using air quotes, but like actually look for inspiration. If you need to, put your phone in a different room. If productive apps like your notes app aren't working for you, write it down, pencil and paper. Give yourself lists. Maybe you want to number the lists like I do, or not. I have a weird process.
If you want to be OCD about it, or if you don't.
Exactly. But give yourself a specific amount of time to work on things and then switch it up so you can keep moving from thing to thing. It helps specifically me. I don't know if it'll help you, but just give it a try. Just try it out. Like, say, I'm going to work on this for an hour and then go to something else. We said, write your ideas down. Yes. Set boundaries for yourself and make sure that you know where all of your content ideas are and put them in one specific spot.
Yes. So take this information, and if anything, we hope that you will say, you know what, I can implement maybe one or two things from here. And that way it will help to save me time to actually use that time instead of consuming, to actually go out and generate and do something. Because remember, y'all, at the end of the day, we can have all of the information at our fingertips. If you do not hit record If you do not write that blog post, if you do not, then you are not moving your business forward to getting some of that, promotion that you need.
Exactly. So I would love to hear if you guys do any of these things, if it helps you or not with, putting down your phone and then picking up your phone to record. So just let us know in the comments or on social media. Send us a DM. If you have a topic you want us to talk about, send us a DM, put it in the comments. Send us an email at help@theseasonedmarketer.com. Make sure to leave us a review so we can get in front of other small business owners to help them feel confident and comfortable in their marketing and go be the best SOB you can be.